Hi. So for my literature review, I chose canine obesity as my subject, looking specifically at how diet and nutrition affect canine obesity. Obesity in humans is an ever-increasing worldwide epidemic. According to World Health Organization figures, worldwide obesity has nearly tripled since 1975. In 2016, 39% of adults were overweight and 360 million children and adolescents being overweight or obese. As in humans, obesity in dogs is soaring. A study done in the mid-1980s showed over 21% of dogs were obese. By 2017, 65% of dogs were classed as overweight. The Royal Veterinary College tells us that obesity carries severe welfare risks for dogs. Obese dogs have shortened lifespans, reduced quality of life, and higher frequencies of important conditions, including arthritis, breathing problems, heart disease, diabetes, and certain types of cancer. I look into recognizing the problem. Do owners know if their pet is overweight or obese? What is behind the mass obesity in pets? Is it the quantity of food we feed or the type of food causing the problem? And what should we be feeding? So what is obesity and why is it a problem? Obesity is defined as an accumulation of excessive amounts of body fat in the body. In humans, data has demonstrated an increasing morbidity and mortality risk with increasing body fat mass. In dogs, it has been demonstrated that in Labrador retrievers, a fat mass over 25% is associated with increased insulin resistance, which independently predicts lifespan and chronic diseases. Obesity is also one of the most common nutritional diseases in dogs. Studies have highlighted several risk factors associated with canine obesity levels. One study done using data from US private veterinary practices highlights those risks for obese dogs over a number of different diseases. A total of 21,754 adult dogs with a reported body conditioning score were included in this analysis. Examples of diseases and ailments highlighted from this study with a higher percentage affecting obese dogs to those of a normal weight are arthritis, diabetes, hypothyroidism, lameness, oral disease, pancreatitis, renal disease, ruptured cruciate ligament, and tracheal collapse. But before we tackle obesity, there needs to be acknowledgement. So, do owners recognise their pet is overweight or obese? Despite clinical studies which found that up to 65% of dogs are obese or overweight, the PDSA Animal Wellbeing Report had 82% of dog owners saying their dog was an ideal weight. 5,768 owners were surveyed for the most recent report in May 2022. The lack of recognition of obesity amongst owners seems to be increasing, with only 14% of owners describing their pet as overweight compared to the same report in 2018, where 17% described their dog as overweight, whereas obesity numbers have risen. So how do we tell if a dog is overweight or obese? This is taken from the policy statement by the British Veterinary Association. Their first recommendation: we support the use of body conditioning scoring used alongside the routine monitoring of body weight and physical measurements to identify, prevent, and manage weight gain and the development of obesity in animals. Second recommendation, vets, vet nurses and pet owners should use a body conditioning scoring system that they can apply consistently and confidently. Body conditioning scoring is the most widely used and practical method for evaluating body condition through visual assessment and palpation. Scoring is guided by animal silhouettes to illustrate visual characteristics for a typical animal or breed, ranging from very thin to severely obese. Evidence shows that body conditioning scoring correlates well and more advanced measures of the amount of body fat. So, what is causing the obesity epidemic? From a diet and nutrition point of view, we need to look into what is causing the problem before we can resolve it. The Association of Pet Obesity Prevention have reports of over 50% of dogs and cats being overweight or have obesity. The latest survey in 2021 had 865 participants over 47 US states. They found out that 43% of those owners fed dry kibble exclusively, with 34% feeding dry kibble most of the time. It also highlighted that owners that never fed either commercial raw, homemade raw, or fresh commercial food was well over 60%. So what do we need to feed to reduce the weight of the dog? A 2015 6-month-long study using a new weight management food was done to prove its use to achieve and maintain weight loss. This was a calorie-restricting dry food labelled as light dog food. 162 dogs were used, 49 different breeds, all overweight, obese, but otherwise healthy. 94% of the dogs enrolled on the study lost weight, 5% gained weight, and 1 dog maintained. As this was a client-based study, dogs at home with their owners, not in a laboratory-based environment, it wasn't a perfectly controlled study. For the dogs that lost weight, their energy levels rose, but their stool volume increased. Another similar study, also using food labelled as light dog food or weight management food, was a 3-month observational study of weight loss using 926 overweight dogs. This was conducted worldwide at 340 veterinary practices in 27 countries. Commercially available dry or wet weight loss foods diets were used. The primary outcome measure was percentage weight loss. The main secondary outcomes were changes in activity, quality of life, and food-seeking behaviour, which was subjectively determined from owner descriptions. A staggering 97% of dogs lost weight. Sexually intact dogs lost more weight than neutered dogs, whilst female dogs lost more weight than male dogs. Another study was done to improve the satiety of dogs, as weight loss programs for dogs often came across increased begging and scavenging behaviours. They were fed 3 different foods. One was a high protein and high fibre. The second one was high protein and moderate fibre, and the third one being moderate protein and high fibre. The results showed that voluntary intake of food 3 hours after feeding a restricted meal was significantly lower on the high protein, high fibre diet than the other 2. So a different view for weight loss is looking at the relatives diet. The Yellowstone National Park Wolf Project latest report in 2020 was put together by many project staff volunteers with accumulated efforts of over 3,000 hours. Do they report on obese wolves? No. So what do they eat? In the 2020 report, project staff detected 162 kills, definitely, probably, or possibly made by wolves. 98 elk, making up 61%, 28 bison, making up 17%, with the rest made up from 4 mule deer, 3 moose, 3 deer, undetermined which species, 3 coyotes, 3 wolves, 2 pronghorn, 1 white-tailed deer, 1 golden eagle, 1 grouse, and 15 unidentifiable animals. During November-December 2020, the wolves also scavenged on 4 elk, 2 bison, and 1 unknown species that they did not kill. Interestingly, another wolf project have reported finding stomach contents left after a wolf kill and have footage of their monitored wolves catching and eating fish and also sourcing out blueberries to eat and feed their pups. So why look at the wolves' diet when looking for a solution to obesity in the pet dog world? The dog and grey wolf descended from a single ancestor around 100,000 years ago. DNA sequences were analysed from 162 wolves at 27 localities worldwide and from 140 domestic dogs representing 67 breeds. Sequences from both dogs and wolves showed considerable diversity and supported the hypothesis that wolves were the ancestors of dogs. So I conclude that obesity is a huge, ever-increasing, life-threatening reality for our pets. We need to get owners educated to recognise when their pet is an ideal weight or not, and educate them to the seriousness of the issue of their pet's obesity. There are many studies out there proving the calorie-controlled diet works. These studies all seem to be funded by big names in the pet food business. Hills and Royal Canin are the examples I used. Seeing that dry kibble seems to be the main culprit in causing the obesity in the first place, we should be looking at alternatives. We know the close relation between domestic dogs and wolves, so surely we should be looking at a more species-appropriate diet. We have the proof that high-protein diets are great for weight loss and for keeping them fuller for longer. So why not feed protein in a raw, natural state? The Raw Proof study outlines the basics that raw feeding can meet all the requirements of the FEDF nutritional guidelines without the need for additional synthetic supplementation. There's a gap in studies into raw feeding. A study for weight loss for obese dogs comparing kibble to raw feed would be an ideal conclusion to this paper. Funding seems to be the big issue. We also see that non-nutrition related aspects that contribute to weight gain flagged up in this research. Neutered pets were harder to get the weight off, as studies showed, so hormones must be playing a part too. Back to the wolves. Not only are they eating a species appropriate diet, but they are all sexually intact. I've thoroughly enjoyed doing this research paper and thank you for listening.